Alright, this is Grumpy Old Gamer. Gonna be playing some Project Highrise today. Gonna be listening to some Remute. Let me know how it looks on Twitch. I have been having troubles with my settings all day. I'm trying to get it going. Put in water lines.
Huh?
listening to Remute's live stream show from last night's Groupies live show. In recording, you can pick it up in Remute's current bundle on groupies.com right now. I'll be playing most of the bundle in its entirety while I'm playing today.
I'm honored to have a chance to speak with you and your family this year. Recently, we learned that our governments, working in concert, have created a system of worldwide mass surveillance, watching everything we do. Great Britain's George Orwell warned us of the danger of this kind of information. The types of collection in the book, microphones and video cameras, TVs that watch us, are nothing compared to what we have available today. We have sensors in our pockets that track us everywhere we go. Think about what this means for the privacy of the average person. A child born today will grow up with no conception of privacy at all. They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves, an unrecorded, unanalyzed thought. And that's a problem, because privacy matters. Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be. The conversation occurring today will determine the amount of trust we can place both in the technology that surrounds us and the government that regulates it. Together, we can find a better balance. mass surveillance and remind the government that if it really wants to know how we feel, asking is always cheaper than spying. For everyone out there listening, thank you.
That none of us will be able to escape it in just a decade. Our identities will be coupled to it, the information sharing is such that none of us will be able to escape it. We are all becoming part of the state, whether we like it or not. So our only hope is to determine what sort of state it is that we are going to become part of. And we can do that by looking and being inspired by some of the actions that produce human rights and free education and so on, by people recognizing that they were part of the state, recognizing their own power and taking concrete and robust action to make sure they lived in the sort of society that they wanted to and not in a hellhole dystopia.
Mr. Snowden, did you sleep well the last couple of nights? Because I was reading that you asked for protection. Are there any threats?
There are significant threats, but I sleep very well. There was an article that came out in an online outlet called BuzzFeed where they interviewed officials from the Pentagon, from the National Security Agency, and they gave them anonymity to be able to say what they wanted. And what they told the reporter was that they wanted to murder me. These individuals, and these are acting government officials, they said they would be happy, they would love to put a bullet in my head, to poison me as I was returning from the grocery store, and have me die in the shower.
Unfortunately, you're still alive.
Right, but I'm still alive, and I don't lose sleep, because I've done what I feel I needed to do. It was the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be afraid.
The greatest fear I have, and I quote you, regarding these disclosures is nothing will change. That was one of your greatest concerns at the time. But in the meantime, there is a vivid discussion about the situation with the NSA, not only in America, but also in Germany and in Brazil. And President Obama was forced to go public and to justify what the NSA was doing on legal ground.
What we saw initially in response to the revelations was sort of a circling of the wagons of government around the National Security Agency. Instead of circling around the public and protecting their rights, the political class circled around the security state and protected their rights. What's interesting is, though that was the initial response, since then we've seen softening. We've seen the president acknowledge that when he first said, we've drawn the right balance, there are no abuses. We've seen him and his officials admit that there have been abuses. There have been thousands of violations of the National Security Agency and other agencies and authorities every single year.
Is the speech of Obama recently the beginning of a serious regulation?
It was clear from the president's speech that he wanted to make minor changes to preserve authorities that we don't need. The president created a review board from officials that were personal friends, from national security insiders, former deputy of the CIA, people who had every incentive to be soft on these programs and to see them in the best possible light. But what they found was that these programs have no value. They've never stopped being used in the United States, and they have marginally to the best programs. The only thing that the Section 250 actually took off program poison stocks and testing $8,500 and it's this kind of review where insiders say we don't need programs. These programs don't make us suffer. They take a tremendous amount of resources to run, and they offer us no value. They go, we can modify these. The National Security Agency operates under the President's executive authority. He can end or modify or direct a change in their policies at any time.
For the first time, President Obama did concede that the NSA collects and stores streams of data.
Every time you pick up the phone, dial a number, write a email, make a purchase, travel on the bus on your cell phone, swipe a card somewhere, you leave a trace. And the government has decided that it's a good idea to collect everything, even if you've never been suspected. Traditionally, the government would identify a suspect. They would go to a judge. They would say, we suspect this crime. Nowadays, what we see is they want to apply the totality of powers to the conveyance prior to the investigation.
Edward Snowden is in the meantime a household name for the whistleblower in the age of the internet. You were working till last summer for the NSA, and during this time you collected secretly thousands of confidential documents. What was the decisive moment, or was there a long period of time, or something happened, and why did you do this?
I would say sort of the breaking point is seeing the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, directly lie under oath to Congress. There's no savior in intelligence community that believes it can lie to the public and the legislators who need to be trusted and regulated.
Hearing that really happened.
To carve out a line is sort of an artifact of the post-war European where the Anglophone countries of the Empire banded together to sort of cooperate and share talk of intelligence gathering sort of stuff. So we have the UK CCHQ, we have the US NSA, we have Canada's CSAT, we have the Australian Signals Intelligence Bureau, and we have New Zealand's TSD.
What the result of this was over decades and decades was sort of a supranational intelligence organization that doesn't answer to the laws of its native countries.
Many countries face a military too. The agencies like the NSA are not allowed to spy within their own borders and their own people. So the Brits, for example, they can spy on everybody but the Brits. But the NSA can conduct surveillance in England. So at the very end, they could exchange their data, and they would be strictly following the law.
If you ask the governments about this directly, they would deny it and point to policy documents between Five Eyes, saying that they won't spy on each other's citizens. But there are a couple of key points there. One is that the way they define spying is not the collection of data. The GCHQ is collecting an incredible amount of data on British citizens, just as the National Security Agency is gathering an enormous amount of data on U.S. citizens. What they're saying is that they will not then target people in that data. Really in addition, the policy agreement between the British citizens are not legally monitored by the actual non-members of the agreement. The state is specifically intended to put a legal restriction on it. Their policy agreements that can be deviated from the law. So if they want to spy on a British citizen, they can spy on a British citizen. And then they can even share that data with the British government that is itself forbidden from spying on UK citizens. So there is a sort of a trading dynamic there. But it's not open, it's more of a nudge and a wink. And beyond that, the key is to remember that the surveillance and the abuse doesn't occur when people look at the data. It occurs when people gather the data in the first place.
How narrow is the cooperation of the German Secret Service BND with the NSA and the Five Eyes?
I would describe it as intimate. As a matter of fact, the first way I described it in a written interview was that the German services and the U.S. services are in bed together. They not only share information about the results from intelligence, they actually share the tools and the infrastructure they work together against joint targets and services. And there's a lot of danger in this. One of the major programs that faces abuse in the National Security Agency is what's called XKeys. It's a front-end search engine that allows them to look through all of the records that they collect worldwide every day.
What would you do if you would sit, so to speak, in their place with this kind of instrument?
You could read anyone's email. Anybody you've got an email address for, any website you can watch traffic from, any computer that an individual sits at, you can watch it. Any laptop that you're tracking, you can follow it as a place to post. It's a one-stop shop for access to the NSA's information. And what's more, you can tag individuals using XKeys, where, let's say I saw you once, and I thought what you were doing was interesting, or you just have access that's interesting. Let's say you work at a major German corporation, and I want access to that network. I can track your username on a website or forum somewhere. I can track your real name, I can track associations with your friends, and I can build what's called a fingerprint, which is network activity unique to you, which means anywhere you go in the world, anywhere you try to sort of hide your online presence, hide your identity, the NSA can find you, and anyone who's allowed to use this, or who the NSA shares the software, can do the same thing. Germany is one of the countries that has access to XKeys.
This sounds rather frightening. The question is, does the BND deliver data of the Germans to the NSA?
Whether the BND does it directly or knowingly, NSA gets German data. Whether it's provided, I can't speak to until it's been reported, because it could be classified. And I prefer that journalists make the decisions about what is However, it's no secret that every country in the world has data of their citizens. Millions and millions and millions of data connections from Germans going about their daily lives, talking on their cell phones, sending SMS messages, visiting websites, buying things online. All of this ends up at the NSA. And it's reasonable to suspect that the B&D may be aware of it in some capacity, whether or not they actively provide the information.
The basically argues that if we do this accidentally actually in our filter didn't.
Right. So the kind of things that they're discussing there are talking about
if the NSA isn't collecting information from German citizens in Germany, either as soon as it leaves German borders? And the answer is yes. Any single communication can just be on that. The NSA might pick up at multiple points. They might see it in Germany, they might see it in Sweden, they might see it in Norway, and they might see it in Britain, and they might see it in the United States. Any single one of these places that a German communication crosses, it'll be
So let's come to our southern European neighbors then. What's about Italy? What's about France? What's about Spain?
it's the same deal worldwide.
Does the NSA spy on proceedings on other successful German companies, for example, to prevail to have the advantage of knowing what is going on in the scientific and the economic world?
I don't want to preempt the editorial decisions of journalists.
Okay.
But what I will say is there's no question that the U.S. is acting as a spy. If there's information at cities that they think would be beneficial to the national interests, not the national security of the United States, they'll go after that information.
There is this old saying, you do whatever you can do. So the NSA is doing whatever is technically possible.
This is something that the president touched on last year. He said just and this was in relation to tapping. Just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. And that's exactly what's happening. The technological capabilities that have been provided because of sort of weak security standards in internet communications and cellular communications have meant that intelligence services can create systems that see it.
Nothing annoyed the German government more than the fact that the NSA attacked the private firm of the German Chancellor Merkel over the last 10 years, obviously. Suddenly this invisible surveillance was collected with a known face and was not connected with a kind of watery, shady terrorist background. Obama now promised to stop snooping on Merkel, which raises the question, did the NSA tape already previous governments in Germany, previous chancellors, and when did they do it, and How long did they do this for?
This is a particularly difficult question to answer because there's information that I've heard strongly. However, as I've said before, I prefer journalists to make those decisions in advance for humans for themselves and decide whether or not the public value of this information outweighs the sort of reputational cost to the officials that work with the surveillance. What I can say is we know Angela Merkel was monitored by the officials. The question is, how reasonable is it? How reasonable is the reason I would suggest it seems unreasonable if anyone is concerned about the intentions of German leadership that they would own
How does a young man, Elizabeth City, the North Carolina, 30 years old, get in such a position? That's a very good question. In general, I would say that Highrise engaged of privatizing government funds. I worked previously as an active staff officer of a government employee. But I've also served much more contracting and private capacity. What that means is you have private for-profit companies doing incredibly government work for larger
And anyone who has the skills, who can convince a private company that they have the qualifications to do so, will be empowered by the government. There's very good oversight. There's very good.
Have you been one of these classical computer cases, sitting red eyed during the nights in the age of 12, 15, and your father was knocking on your door and saying, switch off the light, it's too late now. Did you get your computer skills from that side? Or how did you grade? When did you get your first computer?
Right. I definitely have had, shall we say, a deep informal education in computers. They've always been fascinating. The characterization of having the parents telling you that I was
If one looks to the little public data of your life, one discovers that you obviously wanted to join in May 2004 the Special Forces to fight in Iraq. What did motivate you at the time? You know, Special Forces, looking at you in the very moment, means grim fighting, and it means probably killing. And did you ever get to Iraq?
No, I didn't get to Iraq. One of the interesting things about the Special Forces are that they're not actually intended for direct combat, or what's referred to as a force of combat. They're inserted behind enemy lines. It's a squad that has experience in special forces, and they teach the local population to resist, to support U.S. forces in a way that allows the local population a chance to help determine their own destiny. And I felt that was an inherently noble thing at the time. In hindsight, some of the reasons that we did Iraq were not working out, and I think it's better.
What happened to your adventure then? Did you go stay long with them, or what happened to you?
No, I broke my legs when I was in training. I was discharged.
So it was a short adventure in
Short.
In 2007, the CIA stationed you with a diplomatic cadre in Geneva and Switzerland. Why did you join the CIA, by the way?
I don't think I can actually answer that one.
Okay, if it's what you have been doing there, forget it, but why did you join the CIA?
In many ways, I think it's a continuation of trying to do everything I can to prosecute the public good in the most effective way. And it's in line with the rest of my government appointments, where I try to use my technical skills in the most difficult that I can find in the world.
If we look back, Special Forces, CIA, NSA, it's not actually the description of human rights activist or somebody who becomes a whistleblower afterwards. What happens to you?
I think it's very true. And that no matter how deeply an individual is embedded in that, no matter how hateful they got no matter how strongly they believe in the causes of their country, which I do, you know?
So the NSA to apply what is the advantage for the US government or the CIA who works through a private contractor to outsource a central government function? Contracting culture
It's driven by a number of issues between primarily limiting the number of high-level employees, at the same time keeping from very well-funded businesses, such as, for example, the problem there is you end up in a situation where government policies are being influenced by private corporations who have interests that are completely diverse from the public good. And the result of that is what we saw, for example, where you have private individuals who have access to what the government alleges millions and millions of records, but they could walk out the door.
At the very end, you ended up in Russia. Many of the intelligence community suspect you made a deal, classified material for asylum here in Russia.
The chief of the task force investigating me, as recently as December, said that their investigation had turned up no evidence or indications at all that I had any outside help, contact, or made a deal with anyone to accomplish my mission. I worked alone. I didn't need anyone. I don't have any ties. I'm not a spy from Russia or China, any other country for that matter. If I am a traitor, who did I betray? I gave all of my information to the American public, to American journalists who were reporting on America. If they see that as treason, I think people really need to consider who do they think they're working for. The public is supposed to be their boss, not their enemy. Beyond that,
As far as my personal safety, I'll never be fully safe until these systems have changed.
After your revelations, none of the European countries really offered you asylum. Where did you apply in Europe, for example?
I can't remember the list of countries with any because there weren't many of them. But doing the right thing.
One reaction to the NSA meeting is in the very moment that countries like Germany are thinking to create national internets and attempt to force internet companies to keep their data in their own country. Is this
it's not going to stop the NSA. Let's put it that way. The NSA goes where the data is. If the NSA can pull text messages out of telecommunication networks in China, they can probably manage to get Facebook messages out of Germany. Ultimately, the solution to that is not to try to stick everything in a walled garden, although that does raise the level of sophistication and complexity of taking the information. It's also much better simply to secure the information internationally against everyone, rather than playing let's move the data. Moving the data isn't fixing the problem. Securing the data is the problem.
President Obama, in the very long, obviously doesn't care too much about the message of the leak. And together with the NSA, they do care very much more about catching the messenger in the text. Obama asked the Russian president several times to extradite. He did not. It looks that you will stay till the rest of your life probably in Russia. How do you feel about Russia in that context? And is there a solution to this problem?
I think it's becoming increasingly clear that these leaks did cause harm. In fact, they served the public good. Because of that, I think it'll be very difficult to maintain sort of an ongoing campaign of persecution against someone who the public agrees served the public.
The New York Times wrote a very long report and demanded clemency for you. The headline, Edward Snowden whistleblower, and I quote from that. The public learned in great detail how the agency has extended its mandate and abused its authority. And the New York Times closes. President Obama should tell his aides to begin finding a way to end Mr. Snowden's vilification and give him an incentive to return home. Did you get a call in between from the White House?
I've never received a call from the White House. I'm not waiting by the phone. But I would welcome the opportunity to talk about how we can bring this to a conclusion that serves the interests of all parties. I think it's clear there are times where what is lawful is distinct from what is right. There are times throughout history that it's taken for either an American or a German to think about times in the history of their country where the law provided the government to do things which were not right.
President Obama obviously is, in the very moment, not quite convinced of that, because he said you are charged for 3 felonies, and I quote, "If you, Edward Snowden, believe in what you did, you should go back to work, appear before the court with a lawyer and make your case." Is this the solution?
It's interesting because he mentions 3 felonies. What he doesn't say is that the crimes that he's charged with are crimes that don't allow him to make claims. They don't allow him to defend himself in a and convince a jury that what I did was to their benefit. The Espionage Act was never intended, it's from 1918, never intended to prosecute journalistic sources, people who are from newspapers, about information that's in public interest. It was intended for people who were selling documents in secret to foreign governments, who were bombing bridges, who were sabotaging communication, not people who were serving the public good. So it's, I would say, illustrative that the president would choose to say someone should face the music when he knows the music is a show trial.
Оценка того, что произошло в Киеве, в Украине в целом. Оценка может быть только одна. Это антиконституционный переворот и вооруженный захват власти. С этим никто и не спорит. Кто с этим спорит? Вопрос для меня есть, на который ни я не могу ответить, ни мои коллеги, с которыми, как вы знаете, я очень много в последнее время обсуждал проблему Украины по телефону. Вопрос такой: зачем это сделано? Обратите представителя в таком качестве выступил омбудсмен уполномоченный по правам человека в Российской Федерации Владимир Петрович Лукин. Подписали между оппозицией и властью тогда, 21-го, то самое соглашение.
I'm gonna go get some food. I'll be back later.
Пока тоже, но я хочу это подчеркнуть. Хорошо это или плохо, я просто хочу отметить. Янукович практически в свою власть уже сдал. Он согласился на все, что требовала оппозиция. Он согласился на досрочные выборы